Tonight's first order of business: if innovation is the lifeblood of ideas and ideas are the heart of economic growth, Canada got a mixed but depressingly familiar message today. It seems Canadians are innovators, at least as individuals. We're entrepreneurial and increasingly willing to put capital at risk. But none of that offset the dismal performance by big business, which continues to underinvest in its own future. And that's a problem that is slowing even the most bootstrapping Canadian down. Welcome to The Exchange. For decades, Canada does not score well on innovation. New research, however, finds that we are making some progress, perhaps, though, at a perilously slow pace. The Conference Board has released its latest report card on innovation. The think tank reviewed 16 countries. Last year, Canada earned a D grade and ranked 13th. This year, well, we were promoted to C, placing Canada 9th on the list. The improvement was in two areas: venture capital investment and a newly added measure, entrepreneurial ambition. That takes a look at what share of the population plans to start its own business. According to the report, both suggest a healthier startup and entrepreneurial environment may be emerging in Canada. But in one critical area, Canada ranks last overall. Corporate spending on research in this country has fallen again and earned a near failing grade. For the first time, the Conference Board graded each province in the report. Ontario, Quebec, and BC are the best innovators with a B. PEI and New Brunswick were among the lowest, each scoring a D-. That's below even the worst-ranking peer country of Ireland. This isn't the first time Canada's innovation record has received some negative attention. Recently, another international body released some worrying stats. The Organization for Economic Development found Canadian business enterprise R&D decreased steadily from 1.2% of GDP in 2001 to 0.8% in 2012, well below the OECD median. This occurred despite the generous scientific research and experimental development tax incentive, which amounted to $3.3 billion in 2012 and to 80% of all public support for business R&D. Daniel Muzica is the president and CEO of the Conference Board of Canada. Great to have you with us.
It's wonderful to be here.
So I'm going to start with the bad news, and that is this depressing fact that Canadian businesses simply will not invest in their own futures. They don't spend on R&D, and as the OECD pointed out, despite the fact there are these incredibly generous incentives to do it. Do we have any insight on what that's about? Why won't Canadian businesses make investments in the future?
Well, I think it's a complex set of things. I think one of the things that's not happening, at least from our research, is that a lot of the middle-sized companies in Canada, which are a lot of the backbone for Canadian enterprise as well, are not investing heavily enough in innovation, research and development. And that comes across in the grades that we give. There's also a missing set of skills, we believe, in terms of innovation management. And this is an area that we really do have to improve.
Describe what that means. What is innovation management?
Well, I think it's a question of putting effort into managing innovation like you manage procurement or distribution or your production. And I think this is something that we need to build more into Canadian enterprises.
I just want to ask you, in terms of kind of incentivizing, one would hope or assume that that entrepreneurial spirit would actually flow upward into organizations and that we would keep thinking that way. It does seem as though we stop. Once we start businesses and they grow to a certain size, Canadians sort of stop thinking that way about continuously improving or innovating their enterprises. When you say treat it the same way you do procurement, et cetera, what's the best way to kind of change that mindset? Because we've tried a lot of things in this country.
Well, we have, but I think some of it's education. In our mind, it's education. So, for instance, we've developed a whole set of skills or skills inventory for innovation management. I think often we're finding that people don't know what they don't know. And I think some of this is education. I think some of it is our enterprises also comparing themselves to the best in class in the world. We have a lot of opportunity to export our products, and as we recently released, our services. We need to do that on a competitive basis on a world scale. I think often we've been in protected or semi-protected industries, often we've lacked a certain level of ambition to compete on a global basis, but that's our real opportunity going forward. So I think a combination of things are going to be driving us forward if we want to achieve this opportunity.
And I guess the other aspect of this that is a positive one is a bit of a reminder. You included this kind of entrepreneurial facet in the measure this time around. There have been other studies that echo that Canadians actually are self-starters. They do start businesses. We have good ideas. How much do you think that gives us reason for optimism about where our economy is going? Because we need to figure out what our jobs are going to be. They're not going to be the ones of 10 years ago.
They aren't, and it does give us optimism. The entrepreneurial ambition that we see in the measures is something that's very good news. I think one of the things that you signaled earlier is that we need to become less satisfied with getting to a certain scale and figure out how we can get to an even larger scale to continue growth in our enterprises if we want to create new high-value jobs and the like. This is an important part of what we need to do, is drive not for bronze but for gold in the scale of our enterprises and make sure that they capture as much value as they can on a global scale.
So then let's talk policies. I mean, the fact that the SHRED program, this incentive for R&D, doesn't work, and it doesn't work. I mean, I've seen a chart from Industry Canada that'll make you cry, where there's actually an inverse correlation between government support for R&D and the actual R&D spending. So that's not really working. What should the government do to encourage businesses?
Well, I think business needs to take a look at its own opportunities. Again, one of the things that I think we have a tendency to do in innovation is to put it at the doorstep of government, whatever government's in power. But it's not just a government issue. It's an issue that business, government, and higher education need to work together. And we need to be coordinated. I think a lot of the solution here for realizing more economic opportunity from our research, from our ideas, which are terrific, is to really get better coordination. Universities have to find ways to hand off the ideas out of the university lab. They have to partner more with businesses to identify, well, what are the questions? What are things that need researching? This is not a question of business invading higher education or anything like that. It's about coordination. It's about dialogue. And it's about finding ways to pass the ideas over to make sure that we do realize the economic opportunity. I know government has been looking at where the blockages, if you will, in the innovation spectrum. Right. And we've seen government act, for instance, in the venture capital area with the VCAP program. Saying, look, we need more venture capital to encourage more growth entrepreneurial businesses. So it's about dialogue, finding out where the blockages are now, and figuring out how do we capitalize on those good ideas. And for business, it's about saying, look, what can we realize if we invest more money in research? We need to invest more time and money in our people to improve their innovation skills. Right. So every party really has a part in this.
All right, and of course it helps to have a measurement. We appreciate you joining us for this.